Welcome back. Joining us to analyze the day's market moves is Shaun Dendere from Trive Investments. Shaun, thanks so much for your time this evening. Now, at this point, my hopes for any relief for consumers just keeps diminishing, Shaun. That US inflation print coming in hotter than expected, ticking up to 3.5% on an annual basis in March. Does this move the needle for you when it comes to rate cuts this year?
Firstly, thank you for having me. So it's been quite an interesting day. I think the US economy is under pressure positively. I mean, if we look back at NFP last week, Friday, if I'm not mistaken, there was job growth of over 300,000 people. And so there's a lot of wage pressure and wage growth, which is, really affecting the inflation number, which we're seeing since January. Actually, I think inflation has been increasing in the United States. So from a rate cut perspective, I do believe that the Fed will hold for a lot longer. I don't foresee us having a rate cut anytime soon, like we anticipated in the beginning of the year.
I mean, I guess good for the US, but really, really bad for us. That sticky inflation just proving to be stickier than initially thought. Moving over to Asia. Now, Fitch downgraded its outlook on China's credit to negative. You'd expect this to have a bigger impact on markets. I don't know, but those Asian markets not really fazed by that move. Did that catch you by surprise?
So not really. Well, I was surprised by the downgrade. But if we're looking at Asia and China specifically, there are some positive numbers coming out of China. I think, their growth was supposed to grow by 4%. That's actually increased. Their GDP growth has increased to 5%. I think the PMI numbers that came through also sometime last week were really positive. So in terms of the economy, it is, growing at quite a nice steady pace. Hence, there hasn't been any movement. The downgrade, however, can be attributed to, I'd call it the property bubble in China that's basically bursting, or it's bursting at the seams. Therefore, their fiscal deficit is widening, which is causing concerns for, your rating agencies such as Fitch and Moody's, which also did that, I think, last year in December.
Now, we can only dream for those growth rates, 5%, 4%, man. Let's move.
Definitely.
Let's look at some company news. TSMC out with first quarter numbers. Revenue climbing up 16%. This on the high end of its guidance. That AI trend just proving to benefit companies like TSMC, right?
100%. I think, when AI came through, we, at least as traders on our side, we would have thought it was potentially a bubble. But as you can see, it actually seems that it is here to stay. You see, your big companies such as Google, Apple, Nvidia, customers of TSMC, are really driving that AI, that AI boom in the world. So this really, bodes well for Taiwanese semiconductor, as they actually manufacture the chips that are required for us to use things such as GPT and the like.
I want to zoom into the currency moves that we've currently been seeing. The local currency today took a knock. This after it hit, I think, a 3-month high yesterday. Shaun, is this mainly rather on the back of that risk-off sentiment we're currently seeing? Now, that's what I'd like to know. Or besides the downbeat market sentiment we've been seeing, I also read an article earlier crediting the weakness to risks surrounding the national election, as a poll showed that support for the ANC was waning. Are we seeing that dynamic at play as well as that risk-off sentiment, or is it purely off the back of what we've been seeing in overall markets today?
So I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, right? If we're looking at the Rand, it was really performing quite well. I think even it was actually on a 4-day streak, which is actually the longest streak it's gotten in a very long time. However, political uncertainty, I think Bloomberg released some research, I forgot from which institution, showing, like you said, the ANC support is decreasing, and we're seeing other smaller parties, coming to play, which has led to a lot of political instability, which has really affected the rand negatively. But when it comes to the strength of the rand in the past couple of days, we shouldn't forget that commodities have actually been doing really, really well. And so you're looking at your gold, you're looking at your platinum, etc. And there is quite a nice correlation with the rand when it comes to commodities. I mean, gold is at all-time highs, which really does well for the rand. But going forward, we definitely have to take a wait and see approach to see how the political landscape will affect, the rand and the economy at large.
Sticking in that commodity scene, Teresa updated markets. PGM output held steady, but chrome production dipped. Despite the blip, the miner has kept its annual guidance unchanged. What did you make of that update?
So I find this quite interesting, in that, commodities and commodity providers, such as Teresa, that took a big hit last year. So it is quite positive to see, with high interest rates, load shedding, and just the general economy and high inflation, seeing that, they're actually keeping consistent in terms of their production. And I think going forward, as much as their guidance has remained the same, which is also positive, I think there's definitely a lot of room for, I think, upside, just based on what commodities are doing currently in the market.
Now, Shaun, before I let you go, let's get into your stock pick.
All right, so my stock pick will be Anglo Plat. Quite a bit of a contrarian view there. I think as much as the numbers that they released earlier this year were not that great, and they're also experiencing, I think, job cuts sometime this year. I do think as a long-term play, looking at the balance sheet and it being one of the biggest platinum producers and other different commodities as a whole, I do think that Anglo is where I would probably be putting my cash into in the long term. So it's a long-term play.
And Plat's one to look out for. Shaun, thanks so much for your time and just taking us through the day's markets action. That was Shaun Dendere from Trive Investments.